Chasing the Duke by Tracy Sumner. Narrated by Siegerman. Chapter 1. Where childhood adversaries argue over a swan. Longleat Manor, North Yorkshire, England, the 7th day of Christmas, 1815. She wasn't chasing a duke ever again. Never, ever, ever. Camille Bellington yanked a dangling thread from her sleeve and blew a breath that anyone who heard it would excuse as refined from her lips. She couldn't believe he'd been invited. She knew precisely why he'd been invited. Camille sent a penetrating stare down the enormous table dominating her aunt's formal dining room, her lips pressed hard enough to crack. Lady Isabel Fontaine snickered at something the Earl of Edelman said, refusing to catch her niece's eye when Camille's gaze must have scorched. Her aunt loved nothing more than a dash of fun at someone else's expense.
"You're wasting those smouldering looks on the hardest head in England, Princess. Lady Fontaine couldn't care less about your high dander. She wants a spot of entertainment, and we're it."
Surprised by his astuteness, Camille glanced at Tristan Tierney, the 5th Duke of Mercia, for the first time all evening. Through a trembling candlelit glimmer, the clack of crystal and silverware a dull chime in her ear, his undeniable, bombastic magnificence flowed through her to lodge, quite faithfully in her belly, an unwelcome return. Dressed head to toe in black, except for his loosely tied cravat and pressed linen shirt, eyes glowing, teeth flashing, dark hair mussed just so, he presented a dazzling ducal puzzle every woman in the ton longed to solve. More the fool, she found she couldn't look away, even though she loathed him. Truly, like a toothache, a hangnail, a shallow cut on the tip of one's finger that took forever to heal. Her wound had taken years to heal. As Tristan bestowed his absolute attention on her for the first time in memory, her mind went hazy. Usually, she was an unseen annoyance, his best friend's much younger sister. But curiously, his unblinking gaze fastened her to her chair, like an insect caught in amber. He'd always been handsome, but now it was worse. Time had carved grooves alongside his mouth, hardened his jaw, broadened his shoulders, made a man from a boy. The chattering throng her aunt had invited to a rousing Christmas-tide dinner didn't understand the change, but she did. There were no obvious scars from the Battle of Waterloo, and he'd made light of requests for heroic narratives. But Tristan's eyes, as green as a bearberry leaf, held 1,000 teasing secrets that attracted and repelled in turn. A blatant appeal should one be set on unlocking a gorgeous mystery, which Camille was not, and hadn't been for years. Countess Milburn, seated to his right, gave a breathy sigh and tapped her butter-knife on his wrist, which would have been scandalous had she not been 30 years his senior, and generally regarded as the grande dame of England.
"Mercia, darling, you were going to tell us about your plans for your ancestral estate now that your father has passed on. May he rest in peace."
Tristan's smile was a dreamy display of graciousness, believable for anyone who hadn't assiduously studied it.
"Was I?"
he murmured, his gaze sliding away and allowing Camille to bring a frankincense and roasted goose breath into her lungs.
"I believe I was about to ask Lady Bellington to recount the time she tussled with a swan in the Serpentine. A perfect topic for the season. And apropos, aren't they the symbol for the 7th day of Christmas?"
The choice of subject and the
Sample complete. Ready to continue?